lost and I know where to go now. I don't really have a place to call my home now. Everybody hating on a physical now. Why do everybody make me feel alone? Like I'm trying lost and I know where to go now. I don't really have a place to call.
Approaching the boy. When Shiro heard this, he turned around and looking his two teammates in front of him. It's girl, Shiro said, looking at them. What's wrong with him? Fu asked, looking at Shiro. It's everything. He's been lying to me this entire time, Shiro said, looking at her. The two of them sat down on the earlier side of Shiro, and Naruto looked at the boy in front of him. Care to start from the beginning? Naruto asked, looking at him. Well, first, I guess I should say that girl is my uncle. He's guest to visit me and my father all the time. Then one day, he just stopped coming. It didn't receive any letters or even hear my mother or father talking about him. He just stopped. Unlike my family, I actually cared about him. When I was young, he was my idol. He would tell me about everything he did as a shinobi, and I just thought he was amazing. The only reason I became a shinobi was to be like him. I'm not only wanted to be a shinobi, I wanted to find him more than anything. Shio said, looking at them. Wow, that sound. Fu began only for a voice to cut her off halfway through, like half of the story. Girl said, approaching them of the three, then turned around to look at him. However, Shio saw him. His eyes once again turned to blue color to a golden color. What do you mean? Shiro asked, looking at him. He's still angry, but because he was on a dock and didn't want to accidentally destroy it, he acted calmly. The reason I stopped coming around was because of my brother, girl said, looking at Shiro. Father? What does he have to do with anything of this? Shiro said, looking at girl. After he heard that you wanted to become a shinobi like me, he completely cut off my access to you, even going as far as to have a bodyguard keeping me from talking to you. As for all of the money to invest in finding me, well, I'm sure you must have been a little curious as why none of them ever tried to talk to any of other shinobis. You may be paying them to find me, but your father, my brother, was paying them even more so that they wouldn't look for me, girl said, looking at him. Why would he do that? Shiro asked, looking at Guro. When he asked this, his eyes turned back into their usual blue eyes. Because your inheritance, something like he didn't. This was also his main reason. He was resent me for the most of his life, girl said, looking at Shiro. Really, what is it? Shiro asked, looking at girl. When he asked this, girl kneeled down to Shiro, would look at my eyes. Your inheritance, our bloodline, girl said, as his eyes turned yellow. He's on the other hand didn't inherit the bloodline. He did. I couldn't really say why he wanted it so much. But when he found out that you had it, he cut off all my access to you. Guru said, looking at him. I don't understand, Shiro said, looking at the elderly man in front of him. I'll explain more when we get home, Guru said, looking at his nephew. Shiro then got up and the other two also got up from the docks. I'll tell the two of you the rest of the story later. Right now we need to go home and start to get late, Guru said, looking at the two in front of them. The two in front of them nodded and they left the park. When they left, they reached the entrance. They each went in their different directions. Guro and Shiro head towards Shiro's house. Naruto and Fu heading towards their house. When they arriving home, Naruto looked at Fu, well, seeming like Guro was hiding something from us. Naruto said, looking at her, yeah, I can't imagine Shiro feels he must be confused, Fu said, looking at Naruto. Yeah. So, what do you want to eat? Naruto asked, looking at Fu. I don't we have much left, but let's see what we can make, Fu said, looking at Naruto and Konoha. Team 7 had just left the Hokage office. The three of them and four members of the team then started to head towards their respective homes. Sai, however, went somewhere else. Sai walked through the streets until he reached a random wall of Konoha. When he did, he started to walk alongside the wall until he reached a small house. Sai gave one of his fake smiles and went behind the house. Sai then looked at back of the house and reached into his pocket. Sai, for whatever reason, found himself a little disappointed with the house. It was barely big enough to even be considered a house. It looks more like an outpost than a house. It even 7 feet 5 feet tall and almost 5 feet wide. It barely had enough room for someone to live in the let alone enter themselves. Then again, Sai wasn't going inside the house. He was doing something else. As Sai was searching through his pocket, he let out a sigh, chuckle. Sai then pulled out a piece of paper of with a kunai on it. Sai then looked around a few seconds, making sure no one was nearby or they were following him. When he was certain no one was around, he placed a piece of paper on the wall and started channeling chakra to it. When he did this, the door outlined in the chakra, the door opened to reveal a set of stairs. Sai smiled and grew slight. Seeing this, and opened and peeled the paper off the wall. When he did, he walked through the door. As he started to slowly close behind him, while he was walking down the stairs, he found that it was starting to get easier to see. He eventually came to the room where he was able to see and saw someone wearing a mask looking at him. Agent Sai, has your objective been complete? The masked person asking, looking at him. Yes, my objective has been complete, Sai said, looking at the man in front of him. Please follow me. Lord Danzo would like to speak with you, the male said. Turning around when he said this, Sai started to follow him, remaining calm, completely quiet, until he reached the door. The male then opened the door for Sai, and he walked in. When he did, he saw Danzo behind the desk, looking at him. Seeing that you're here, I take it your mission was a success? Danzo asked, looking at Sai. Yes, I was able to locate Naruto Uzumaki, Sai reported, looking at him. So, he is in Water Village. Are you sure that it was Naruto Uzumaki from Konoha? Danzo asked, looking at him. Yes, he matched the descriptions you gave me. He was spiky blonde, sun kissed hair, blue eyes, the three whisker marks on each cheek. If that wasn't enough evidence, then I was also fortunate enough to see him use the cubic chakra, said Sai, looking at the elderly man in front of him. Well, then that's good to know. How is his social standing? Sai asked, looking at him. From what I've seen, he has two friends that cares for him, as well as a teacher who also cares for him. I have also concluded that he is a good friend with the Hokage of the village. Sai said, looking at him. Well, then, it sounds like abduction from May prove to be challenging. Danzo said, looking at the younger male in front of him. Not as difficult as you might think. I gave Naruto an invitation to this year Chunin exam in hopes that he would attend. If he does, then it will be only be his two friends and him. This will give us the perfect opportunity to abduct him and use him however you see fit, Sai said, looking at Danzo. Danzo smiled, hearing this, and looked at Sai. That's good to hear, Sai. You did an excellent job. Now, you better go and get some rest, Danzo said, looking at him. Sai nodded and left the room. When he was gone, Danzo smiled and began to chuckle to himself. I can't believe my luck. Not only he was able to locate Naruto, but he was able to convince him to come to the Chunin exams. Who knows? If everything goes according to plan, then I may just get an ultimate weapons after all, Danzo thought to himself. He, the three members of the former Taka 312 were currently walking through the town and the streets. So, what did Sai wanted to talk to you about? Fu asked, looking at the blonde beside her. Sai wasn't that the name of the one of the guys from Konoha? Shiro asked, looking at Naruto. Yeah, he wanted to invite me to his year Chunin exam. Apparently, this year it's being held on Konoha, and he wants me to come, Naruto said, looking at the white hair male in front of him. Really? Well, that's nice of him, I guess, Fu said, looking at the blonde beside her. Yeah, but to be honest, I'm not sure if we should go or not. What do you think? Naruto asked, looking at the two beside him. Looking at Naruto, she couldn't tell that he was uncomfortable the idea of returning to Konoha and didn't want to return unless he wanted to. Fu was about to speak, however. To surprise, Shiro was the first to speak. I don't think this is the right time to be thinking about that. We have training right now, so I think we should wait until after training to decide, Shiro said, looking at the two in front of him. I guess, Shiro, you're right. After all, Sensei said, has he something important to show us today? Fu said, looking at the two males in front of her. Yeah, so we'll talking about this after we get done training, the blonde said while smiling on his face. The three then walked to the place where Guru had first tested them. They saw the male standing against the three with the snake bottle in his hand. However, to their surprise, the bottle hasn't been opened, and by looking at the male, it looking like he hasn't been drinking. When the three reached the male, he looked like at them and sighed. Glad to see you that the three of you are here early like I asked, Girl said. Looking at them, he then placed his hand on the three of them and then looked at them. Today I'm going to show you a few chakra control exercises. I'm planning on showing you three of you this yesterday, but as I found out yesterday, it was difficult to control your chakra. When you have been drinking, the male said, looking at them. Okay, so what are you going to show us? Naruto asked, looking at the older man in front of him. Girl heard this. He smiled and looking to the three beside him. He then placed his hand together and separated them. Girl then placed his foot on the tree and took the three surprise. He started to walk up to the tree. However, are you doing this? Shiro asked.